everyone, my name's Rebecca. I work with Urban Sketch Course, and today I'm going to try something a little bit different. So I've always had some sort of interest in art, I've always been interested in it, but I've never actually attempted urban sketching myself. So today I'm going to do Ian's free course that's available on urbansketchcourse.com, and I'm going to try and bring you guys along with me for the journey. I don't necessarily have all the materials. I've kind of winged it a little bit, but I'm aware that a lot of you guys starting off probably don't have all the materials either. So I've got a few bits and I'll go through them at every stage and I'll show you my substitutions and we'll see together if they work or if I just need to actually buy the right things. So let's get started. So I've got the course on my laptop. I've got my sketch pad in front of me. I'm going to have the reference image on my iPad in front of me, just because I don't have a printer. So I think it saves the environment if I just keep it on the screen in front of me, and then I know I can zoom in and out. I'm going to start with a pencil, and I've made sure that the ruler is well hidden away, and most importantly, cup of tea.
The front elevation, so it's like that, and then it comes back down here. So there's that shape, can you see? And it's roughly going to be about that size. Now I'm not making any marks on the paper, I'm just visualizing where it goes. So
one of the first things that Ian does in this tutorial is he actually draws the outline of the buildings with his finger. And initially I thought this is a bit silly, but it's helped me massively because when I first drew the white building that dominates the frame, I took it really high, and then I soon realised, well, I've actually not got room for the roof or for the cathedral behind it, which I want to include, and I want some detail within that roof. So I know to then bring that down and not go as high with it. Even though in the reference photo it might go a little bit higher, I'm going to shorten it a little bit so I can get that detail on the roof. And the same with this right-hand edge, this white building here. My initial layout took it right to the very edge, and I don't really want that. I want to suck it in a little bit and leave a bit of white space around the edge. So again, I know to make all of these buildings a little bit slimmer than I initially anticipated, and that's really helped me. So that's surprising.
So if I place the pen, it's going to go roughly about there. Now again, that is giving me so much information because it's telling me how high I want this building to go. I don't want it to go too high because if I do, I can't squeeze in the church behind with the towers and the domes. And if it goes too low, I can't get that wonderful sweep of the pathway coming up which leads you and invites you into the composition. Now obviously behind that you've got the church with the towers and the domes. And it's kind of tricky to do that with a pen, but I can draw with my finger, so I know.
It's quite tricky because again, like the finger placement exercise taught me to narrow down the buildings, and then this has taught me to narrow them down even further, and the paper suddenly feels too small, when before I sat down with a piece of A3 paper and I thought, wow, this is huge, how am I going to do all of this? But now I've actually started to compose it, I realise I'm going a lot bigger than I'm intending to. So that's something I really need to think about when I'm moving on to the outline stage, is to make things smaller than I am thinking of.
So that is going to come
This is the scary part now.
Like this, okay, just down there like that. Then the roof is going to come down like that. And remember, I want to make this building quite skinny. Now just notice how these windows are being drawn. They're actually really untidy. And I'm doing that not because I want them to be untidy, but simply because my focus is just to simply locate them. Just pop them in. They don't have to look, as long as they look like a window, they don't have to look too detailed or too precise, because I don't want to take up too much time on this at this stage, because all the steps later on to do with detail and colour and tone, I'm going to be focusing in on that. So we've got all those buildings in place, okay? A lot of perspective going on, so just watch how the perspective's coming down, 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 like that. So all of these buildings here, the blue one and the white one, are on the same plane, So in terms of perspective, they're all heading off towards this vanishing point over here.
Okay, I think I'm happy with where I've got to on this stage. I've tried to sketch and keep up with Ian to try and stop myself from stressing too much. So this whole thing has taken me around about 10 minutes to do. And as you can see, it's extremely basic. But that's what Ian has asked for, essentially. He's just wanted a basic outline, basic shapes. And that's all we need at this stage. So let's just try and make this outhouse look like it's alive and not a random block. So yeah, I'm happy with my perspective. I've corrected a few things. I brought this down a little bit more because in the picture the doorway sort of sits into the path, just to give this a bit more of an elevated look. Obviously there's no major detail in anything. It's all very, very basic, very kind of suggestive for now. But I'm still not sure at this bit here because it's quite shadowed. I don't know whether I need to drop it down and then maybe back. Yeah, that kind of works, doesn't it? And this bit I've left quite ambiguous because I don't want to box off that side yet. And the same with here, I'll probably just soften it at the edges. But I'm happy with how that's gone down.
Just taking this line all the way down. And this is the guttering that you can see. So we actually want a bit of a thicker line there. It drops out. I'm just going to try this pen. I want this to be a little bit thicker. That's better. It doesn't really matter at this stage where you begin with this. You can kind of start wherever you want, but you've got to start somewhere. So I just started with the side of the house. For me, this is not detail. This is just still very much to do with outline. So it's a more careful, precise kind of drawing. And if you can see the pencil lines, it actually means that you're doing the right thing, because the pencil lines are showing through. It just means that the ink lines are not exactly on top, and that's kind of what you want. So when I'm drawing at this stage, I'm very mindful about the space around the edges. So I don't want to take that too far into the corner, because I just like the fact that there's space there. So beyond that, we've got another drain pipe coming down, and I think that drain pipe, it might act as a framing device, but this might be a better framing device here. So that might be a better frame, an outside frame, and then the windows just go beyond that.
Okay, so that step has taken me around about 15 minutes or so. And again, I've kept it as loose as I possibly can. I've not worried so much about more finicky parts. And I've tried to just get the marks down. Places like the path, I feel like I've done more line work on than perhaps I needed to. But then a lot of these buildings are still quite sparse, which I quite like. So then when I put the colour on, it won't be as dominated by shape. I wanted it to be more about space, which is exciting. Also, there's a few things that I noticed here this time that I didn't notice before. Like these little windows here weren't in my pencil drawing, and there's a little sticky out bit here, which is kind of in the scene, but there's a lot going on here. So I just kind of skimmed past it, but I think adding that in really helps. And this little wall here, which again, I've just sort of put a suggestion of smaller bricks in for now, and I'll come back to that later on. I've just tried to do bits but not overwork it. You know, if something seems a bit unsure, like these foliage, I'm not really completely sure what I'm drawing. So I've kind of flicked back to it a lot rather than focused on it. But yeah, bit of a mess, but let's move on to the colour. Oh, before we go, I need to rub out the pencil. I'll do that quickly and come back. Okay, so I've finished rubbing out my pencil. I've got some water for my paints, and I've made a fresh cup of tea. Make sure I'm keeping them separate so I don't accidentally dip into my tea. This is kind of the part that I was a bit worried about because I don't really have the right materials for this, but I'm going to see how it goes. So I have a few random detail brushes from candle painting, and I have a couple of rounds from probably something similar. A craft idea I tried once and never stuck to it. So I found them in the depths of my art cupboard. And then Ian's colour chart, the only colour I got, so I've got the Indian yellow and I've got the manganese blue, but you can see I've got very little manganese blue. So I've got cerulean as a backup, and cerulean is a lot stronger. So I just have to be really careful with cerulean, it's more opaque. Then Ian uses ultramarine blue, which I haven't got, so he'll kill me. But I've got Prussian blue, which is richer. So again, I'm just gonna have to be a bit more careful. And I haven't got burnt sienna. And I feel like not having burnt sienna and oh my gosh, can't even say it. I feel like not having burnt sienna and ultramarine blue is a crime against urban sketching. So I will go to the shops and buy them immediately. But I have got burnt umber, which is a bit richer. So again, I'm just gonna have to be a bit careful on those three if they need to come out and play. So, wish me luck.
The first colour coming out to play today is the manganese blue. I'm going to start off with the side of the building here. Look at this, gorgeous, and then just pure water. So as I'm painting, you've seen the colours, I've talked about the colours and why I'm using these colours, but really focus in on the use of water. Now I know you can't see me dipping the brush in, because we can't really film that, because if we did, it'd just take up too much space on the screen. But now, for example, this is just pure water, okay? Just coming down, just so I can control everything. So we've got the warm blue, the ultramarine, and we've got the cool blue. And the two of them having a little play together. Very, very wet on wet, just mixing the colours together on the page, which is just fabulous. Bit of burnt sienna now, guys. Check this out. You see the burnt sienna is going to mix with the manganese blue. Now I know they weren't the complementaries we demonstrated before, but they will still behave like complementaries. The splashes are great because the splashes just really help with the texture, especially when you've got things like old stones and steps that you want to try and suggest. So splashes of colour are just wonderful for adding that layer of texture on. Now let me show you what I'm going to do next. I'm going to pop that on there and I'm going to make what I call a soup. So a bit of white, burnt sienna, a bit more in there, and then ultramarine blue. There we go. So we've got a nice little soup going. And that, everybody, is the first part of the watercolour stage. So I've really kind of focused on this area.
Wow, well that first part went really fast and I think I just completely winged it for 90%. My soupy colour went really green. It started off really dark and then it kind of got too yellow and then it got too green. I don't mind it, I don't mind the difference. And then some of this colour over here got a bit dark and a bit rich and I'm a bit scared at how it's looking at the moment. And some of it's still really wet. So I'm going to give it a minute to dry. It's tricky because I want it wet, because I want to be able to move it around, but then I don't want it saturated. And it's also not watercolour paper, which doesn't help at all, does it?
The second part of the watercolour stage now, everybody, and just so you're aware, we haven't had a long pause. It's still wet. We've only broken for about 2 minutes, so everything is still kind of wet, which is kind of what we want. You see, and it's just mixing a little bit with that ultramarine, so it just suddenly opens up the space down at the bottom, which is really nice. A bit more manganese blue on the steps here. Now I'm not going to try and paint the steps, because I'm going to do that with the brush pen stage, so I don't really need to worry about that. So it looks messy, but it's actually quite carefully controlled. But nobody ever believes me. They think I just slap colour around. But we were just saying then, Rebecca made a very good point about how, you know, it's not always about the choice of colour. It's how you put the colour on, how you use the water, and the tonal value of the colour. Now again, there's lots and lots of pigment there. It's too strong, it's too dark. So now, pure water, just water, Okay, and then we just drag this up very, very carefully. Watch how I'm painting this. There's no pressure on the brush at all. This is a far different stage from all the others. You know, the others are very much driven by the objective, and this is a much more subjective stage in the sense that you are allowing the colours to come out and have a little bit of a play, bit of a dance across the page.
Okay, I think I'm going to stop. There's a few things I'm not overly happy with, but overall I kept it with Ian, which was my goal. That colour, that Prussian blue is lovely, it's so nice. And it's tricky because the things in part one that I said I was unhappy with, Ian actually then went on to do in part two. So maybe I'm sort of prejudging myself and holding back a little bit. So yeah, I wish I'd done a little bit more detail down here because Ian's done a lot more stonework than I have in the wall and on the pavement, and he can fill them a little bit more. But that's fine, you know, it's a learning thing, that's okay. But yeah, I feel like these buildings really push back and this one really jumps forward, which is kind of the aim of what we're doing. The shadow in the distance, the wall, don't love, we'll see how it goes. And obviously my dog had to bark when Stan barked. My paint's still wet, so I'm having a cup of tea and some chocolate. It's going to take forever. Okay, I'm bored of literally watching paint dry and I've finished all my chocolate. So I'm moving on. I don't care if it's dry. I don't think it'll ever be dry because of the paper. I don't know. Anyway, so brush pens. I have just bought these. They're brand new, as you can see, never been opened. I think I bought them from Amazon. So I'm not sure if I've got all the right colours, but we'll see how we get on, shall we?
So to help me with this, I'm going to start off with the black. And this doorway just needs to...
It really scares me when he starts off with the black. That's the scariest pen.
be black. So just check this out. Big, solid mass of black in that area there. Okay. And that just suddenly makes everything pop. Now I'm going to use the same one again, same pen, but this time I'm using the fine liner part just to do all the window panes. Can you see? And this gives a really nice focal point to this building because of the contrast. There's such a strong tonal contrast because obviously the building itself is white. It's a whitewash kind of building, but the panels are black, so it's that lovely contrast which gives it a real kind of focal point. The nice thing about doing it this way, just working with the same tone throughout the picture, is it just helps to give it a balance as well. So you can ensure there's little pops of black throughout the picture. And as we progress through the picture, there's a different type of that all needs to be black. There's a different type of observation going on now. So at the beginning in steps 1 and 2, I was kind of looking at the whole scene, whereas now I'm really focusing on small areas, and I can draw these small areas or focus on these small areas with confidence because I know that they're all kind of in the right place. Everything's kind of where it needs to be. Okay, now that's all of that has been done with the 15. So now I'm going to go in with the 79. So this is the mid grey, but it's the warm one. Now watch what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go into the black with the 79. I'm going to drag it down just to make that area a little bit darker. I'm doing the same thing now with the window panes because I don't want these all to be black. So if you look at the photograph, you can actually see there's curtains in those windows. So hopefully the way this is progressing now with these pens, it's starting to create a lot of harmony because the same tonal value is being used throughout the picture. So just a moment ago I was using it for the frames of the windows, this 79. Now I'm using it to capture some of these sandstone bricks. So it's just hopefully linking different parts of the picture Okay, so that was all with the 79. Let's use the 60s. This again is the mid-grey. It's the cooler version of it. And watch this, just in one stroke. See, just really using the thickness of the pen, giving it a second coat as well, see? Just to capture that shape really quickly. We'll do the same thing up here now as well. Just one stroke. Now the reason I didn't do all of this black is because I wanted to drag it down. So watch this, just drag that down. It just gives a nice little sense of almost like mystery as it kind of goes into that doorway there. And just soften these edges a little bit here. Okay, and now we do the risers on the steps. Okay, so that's all been done with the 60. Now there's one area that I'm very mindful I haven't really touched, and it's the foliage, because I want to build that up with line work in the detail stage. I don't feel like I really want to do too much with that at this stage, because I'll lose a lot of the colour. I want the texture to come through, and the best way of handling that is really through line work. Okay everyone, and that I think is all I'm going to do for step number 4, which is the Tombow brush pen stage.
That was quite a scary, tricky stage. Ian goes so fast on this. I actually switched from marking in the windows, from doing it with the nib to the brush, just to try and get it in quicker, because I'm not too familiar with it. So I'm trying to get it down as fast as possible, but it's meant I'm not as tidy, I'd say. The other thing is, when he says a number, it takes me a good minute to know which pen is which. So I don't know, I might colour code them or something so that I can see them easier and I can just grab the right one quickly. But I enjoyed that. It wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. This was the stage I was most terrified for, and I'm not displeased by it. I don't hate it. It's doing good. The last stage is the details, so let's get cracking on with that. So Ian starts off with the Uniball, which I don't have, but I have got this Faber-Castell bullet nib, which is quite thick. It's 1.5, so that's going to have to do.
Of the 2 Uniballs, I'm going to start off with some patterning on the top here, so just the kind of underside of these tiles that we can see. And as you can tell, it's a little bit stylised. And when I say stylised, you know, it's kind of emphasising the patterns, but I like that. So the Uniball that I just used, they're great for kind of grabbing areas of black, but for line work, they're perhaps not that great. I mean, they're kind of okay for some things, but you just kind of want to be careful with them, really. I love every part of this process, but I've got to admit, this is my favourite part. Just love observing different patterns and textures, and just how you can just weave them into a composition. So when you get onto this stage now, a lot of things kind of start to make sense. So, you know, after the painting stage, there can be a lot of, I find, ambiguity, because you're not quite sure what's going on, because you've just got these big, vast areas of colour. But once you start doing the drawing on top, then a lot of things just start to make sense, or hopefully they do anyway. So now I'm doing lots of, if you like, black shading in between these stones to do several things. One is to bring out the individual shapes and add more tone and more texture, and also more contrast, so it differentiates between what's around it. So it's all about kind of separating out the elements now, so things are actually standing out. Because at the moment, well, prior to that, this and this were looking too similar, and I don't want them to look similar. I want this to look a little bit darker and stronger, so it probably needs a bit more tone work adding to it.
So all I've done really is just the same sort of thing. I've done a few hatching techniques. I've fixed these stairs. I found a little fault here as well where I'd forgot to cap them off. So I've just added in those like little cap lines here. They're not perfect, but for my first time, give myself a break. Yeah, okay, so, and again, some of the pens aren't the pens I want, but we move. It's not about perfection, it's about doing it. So let's crack on with the next stage of detail.
The reason I make a big thing about the drain pipes, and especially these brackets, is it breaks up shapes. You've got this really strong vertical that comes down, and then the brackets just kind of break it up. So just go back to the floor. I've not really done much on this floor here because I kind of don't feel I want to overdo it too much, because I like the space at the bottom. It just gives the picture an opportunity to breathe. So what I really don't want to do is bring these stones right down to the bottom, because it will just clash with what's going on over here. So it's nice to have that kind of sense of space.
I think I'm finished. I'm not sure if I'm finished. I feel like I'm finished for now. Definitely for today. Otherwise I'm going to get stuck going round and round and round in circles, and I don't want to do that. And I don't want to overwork it either, so I think it's really important to know when you've kind of had enough, and I feel like I'm done for today. I've really, really enjoyed this experience. It's been fun. I'm really surprised with the outcome. I genuinely didn't think it'd look like this. I'm so pleased with what I've created. Even the bits that I wasn't keen on to begin with, you know, the wall, this kind of side of the building, the foliage, the colour mixing here I didn't like, the greys that went wrong. So much of it went wrong, but I'm actually really pleased with the outcome. There's things I'd change, definitely, but that's part of learning, and that's been fun. There's a few things that I know I've messed up on. These steps kind of don't really work, but that's fine. This wall, again, it's not my favourite thing in the world. The foliage, I definitely need to practice drawing leaves. That's apparently not my strong point. But I think overall the perspective I think is pretty okay. You know, there's a few bits that did go awry and I've tried to fix it. And those initial starting points that we lay down, I feel like I've got them. You know, I feel like that structure's there. I feel like the sketch is fun, it's loose, it's vibrant. I'm proud of it, and I'm really pleased with what I've done. It's been a really lovely experience, and I really would encourage anyone who's interested in art or would like to give this a try to give it a go. It's completely free, so you may as well. There's absolutely nothing to lose other than a couple of hours of your life maybe. But I'm pleased with this, and I'm really happy, and hopefully I get to see all of yours again soon.